My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you pardon for my sins and the grace to make these moments of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. I was reading something a while ago about studies that certain academics did, trying to understand people's cravings and longings. I don't know all the details of their conclusions, but I was intrigued by one particular aspect, which is that the intensity of a craving reaches its peak right before the moment when it would reach fulfillment. And that goes for things like someone longing to see a family member they've been away from for months, or even just things like a smoker longing for a cigarette. And for us, who have spent the last 4 weeks preparing for Christmas, today is not just any other day. It's the moment of prelude to fulfillment. It's the point when the craving is at its peak. And that can mean plenty of things, of course. For some, that's just longing for presents, for others, Christmas food, for others, the family celebration or midnight mass, or whatever it happens to be. All that longing, whatever it is anticipation. But anticipation of what? All those things that we can crave or long for have one thing behind them, the thing that we really long for, which is happiness. Each has a certain degree of happiness, some more, some less. In some cases, it's more pleasure than happiness. In other cases, it's a deep happiness, more than a passing pleasure. But in every case, whatever we long for the joy that comes with possessing it. Now, the last day of Advent, we stand at the threshold of happiness. And we can't help but want to pray about entering into that joy in a way that makes it truly lasting and truly worthwhile. This was the whole mission of St. John the Baptist. He was also there at the threshold of happiness. His whole life was an anticipation of it, and everything he did was directing people to it, which in the end, of course, means directing people to you, Jesus, since you are, in the end, all of our happiness, and not just at Christmas. All this preparation of Advent is a means of getting us to be closer to you always, in a particular way at Christmas, but not only then. So that gives a lot of colour and direction to the text we contemplate today, the great Song of Zechariah. There he is, his lips loosed, and he cannot help but proclaim the greatness of the marvels of God. I won't read the whole thing here, but we can contemplate just these last verses. You, little child, you shall be called Prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare the way for him, to give his people knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of their sins. This by the tender mercy of our God, who from on high will bring the rising sun to visit us, to give light to those who live in darkness and the shadow of death, and to guide our feet into the way of peace. Well, Jesus, although Zechariah is talking about his son John the Baptist, when I hear those words, I can't help but feel so inspired that I have to lift my heart and direct my words to you. It's this idea that everything comes from you. By the tender mercy of our God, who from on high will bring the rising sun to visit us. That is the most inspirational thing. When we think about the tender mercy of our God, I don't think anyone could have imagined a tenderness so deep, nor a mercy so great, as what we anticipate finding when we enter into Christmas just a few hours from now. Well, I can't help but hear the preface of that great and complete joy in the voice of Zechariah, as he proclaims the marvels that he foresees. Not just in the words he says, but in the way that he must have uttered them, the full expression of everything that burst forth as he discovers his speech again. He must have been contemplating it for 9 months, without being able to express any of it. I wonder how it must have been to have the Holy Spirit flood his speech with such grace, founded in so much joy when he finally spoke again. And I wonder what he felt when he saw you born, Lord, as he surely must have. Not in Bethlehem, of course, but a little later. I wonder what it was like when he first laid eyes on you, perhaps just a few weeks old, and found himself looking into the eyes of the salvation that his own lips had prophesied. Was it like the rejoicing of Simeon? Was it something even more? No matter how it was, I have no doubt that he found the deepest and greatest happiness next to you, as everyone does. And so today, on our last day of preparation, perhaps we also can accompany Zechariah as he prepares the coming tender mercy of our God, who from on high will bring the rising sun to visit us. And there is nothing I long for more right now than to let that longing that I feel find fulfillment in this happiness, the happiness of being beside you, the kind of joy that runs much deeper and lasts much longer than just food and presents. This is the final burst of preparation that brings Advent to a close and brings us into Christmas in a way that makes everything make sense. It's so easy for us to lose sight of the fact that joy comes from you, Lord. I mean, it should be easy. Here and now, we can already begin to taste Christmas and also the chocolate that goes with it. Everything about Christmas is about happiness, but everything about Christmas is about you. It's not just a nice scene with pretty paintings of a stable and a manger. It's the one in the manger who creates the joy. Help us to prepare for that stable, Lord, by deciding in a determined fashion to find you there before we go to find the chocolate. Even if everything else has been lacking in the totality of Advent, even if we feel like we've failed miserably to live Advent really preparing for Christmas, help us to make this last day count so that we have you at the forefront and can have the happiness of being with you. The truth is, being with you, having you, makes people happy. I could give so many examples of that, but one in particular springs to mind. Before I was a Catholic, while I was finding my way to the faith, but I wasn't fully there, I used to work in the city, the middle of the city, where you'd find all sorts of characters, colourful people. I spent most of my time there, so I got to know a lot of the characters. Not many of them by name, but certainly you recognize the people who are around. Everyone from the street people to the petty thieves, the full gamut of the rather full colourful characters that tend to inhabit the centre of any big city. Well, I was there one day and I found myself in the middle of a Christian rally. And I have to admit that wasn't really the kind of thing I was inclined to be involved with, but I was milling around there and I was quite surprised to see a certain person I knew. I didn't know him personally, but he had quite a reputation, because he was a con artist. And of course you think, well, Christian rally, he must have thought, fantastic, lots of lovely naive Christians, I'm going to go home richer than ever. And in fact, he went home much richer than he ever thought, but not in the way that he thought. When I laid eyes on this guy, and he looked me straight in the eyes for whatever reason, he was crying, bawling his eyes out, weeping and weeping and weeping for joy. And he had just found Jesus Christ. I don't know what happened in that man's life. I don't know what happened afterwards in his life. But the sense of joy that he had on finding you, Lord, was absolutely palpable, even without talking to him. And it's so true. A person finding you finds happiness. And for us, it's not going to be like that con artist. That guy had a big change to take place and a massive emotional experience. But in his case, even then the emotions will have changed over time. And he had to find you, I suppose, just like we do every single day. But then what's the conversion that we're looking for as we prepare to enter into Christmas? looking for the joy of being beside you. Let's put all the brakes on that enthusiasm and anticipation of Christmas so that we can direct that same enthusiasm and anticipation to the someone who will make us truly happy. Help us, Lord, to direct it all to you. This Christmas, I want to contemplate you. I want to put you in first place in my prayer. When I get to Mass, I want to be there for you. I want to put my things in second place, even my presents. I think about the way that I know if I let go of my preferences, just that one thing can eliminate so many family difficulties. I want to concentrate this Christmas not on getting everything I feel like, but on being there for you, Lord, as an apostle of happiness. In a sense, like John the Baptist, but just in the middle of everyone around me. And Mother Mary, whether we go to Christmas Mass at midnight or in the morning, help each of us to enter into Christmas this year with the determined resolution to make that happiness we long for lasting and deep, present in our lives. Help us to do that by directing ourselves towards your Son. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations which you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask your assistance in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.